Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works, and we're at the famous Clutter Zone, living up to its name. We're working on the stair car. As you can see, I've got the cab. It's still just loose on the frame. I've done a little bit more work in the engine compartment here. The brake booster was a resin casting off of the 90s Super Duty kit. The actual cylinder itself was scratch built out of bits and pieces of styrene just laying around on the workbench. Put a battery in place, and as well as that, I've basically gone over the wiring on the firewall with a Sharpie. So there is some detail in there, not as much as I'd like. I still might add a windshield washer bottle and an overflow tank. I just had to consult some pictures to see just exactly where they're going to go. This is part 8, and it's hopefully going to be the last part of the stair car. And let's see, as you can see right here, I've started painting the tail lights. They've had black and silver put on them, and the upper lens is going to get some red. I've not yet painted our stair assembly, and it's still loose. Now, with this, before I do any airbrushing, I'm going to put some lights in here and there. Just basically 4 more lights on the top. And then we will be priming this. There will be more detail work to be done on this, of course, basically detail painting to do. And the biggest project that I haven't even started with this particular build is the decals for the side. So I will be starting that in the next couple of days. It's going to require some computer work and such. So, as I promised, I have installed a couple lights on this side and a couple on this side, and I've staggered them. So basically, one is here, one is there, one is there, one is there. So when they're all on, they would be lighting up the entire platform, because that seems to be what they've done on the stairs, done an alternating thing. So the next step for the staircase part here is I'm going to prime it in flat white, and then I'm going to give it a coat of gloss white before moving on to painting the treads. Whatever color they're supposed to be, and I'm going to have to look on the series to see. I'm thinking some sort of a dark gray for the treads and for the upper surface here. Logically, that's what it should be, but I don't know what it really was. So I don't know how, but I forgot to put an exhaust on this thing. I suppose I kind of got a little confused in combining parts in 2 different kits. The exhaust I did put on is from the 78 AMT kit, basically because it's going to fit the engine best. And really the only adjustment I had to make was I had to take a little bit out of the pipe from here to here so that the bend going over the axle would be in the right place. Otherwise, it pretty much went on all right. A little bit of a jog here where the 2 parts come together. So painting. I've been doing some painting. As you can see, I started very, very rusty here. And then as we got farther back, I left it more silver. Now I know in Southern California, you're not going to get rust due to salt and things like that, but you do get a lot of rust based on just the heat of the exhaust. And given the age of the vehicle, this would not have had a stainless steel exhaust. It would have just been mild steel. And anyone who owned a car or a vehicle that was built before the mid-1980s knows that vehicle exhausts only lasted a couple years before they started rusting out. So that's why this is so badly aged. And some other stuff painted. Oh, let's get this big piece out here. So I've been doing some painting on the staircase itself. The treads and this part here, I used German gray because when I looked at a close-up of the stairs themselves, they seem to be a very dark gray color, so that's what I went with. And I missed two. All of these lights here, I first of all painted them silver, and then I used some, let's get a better view here. I used some Tamiya gloss white, but I made sure it wasn't mixed up very well, so it was kind of translucent. And the idea is the lenses have a little bit of a white cast to them. And of course, the handrails themselves, I used Testors aluminum for those. And the tracks right there, I did those aluminum as well. Just because the couple of images you can see it seemed to be bare metal that these pieces slid on. Also on the list of things I should have done a long time ago is we have no cab lights, no roof lights, or clearance lights as they're sometimes called. And we do need a complete set on there. Now I know it seems kind of ridiculous because it's not like it's indicating clearance when you've got a giant staircase above it. But I have double checked, and the stair car in the series did in fact have roof lights on there. So I need some roof lights. And fortunately, the Super Duty kit from the 90s, the 350 dually, on the chrome sprue, we do have some cab lights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those are the ones I'm going to use. They may not be exact, but I think they're going to be close enough for our purposes. So I'm just going to glue those onto the roof, and then I'm going to tint what should be the light up part with some Tamiya clear orange. There they are, mounted and tinted. So I was trying to replicate the license plate that you see on the rear fender of the Stair car. And basically I had a whole pile of images of California license plates, and I was taking individual letters in Adobe Illustrator, like some sort of demented ransom letter or something. And I thought, there's got to be a better way. So I just kind of shut down that, and I went into just Google search, and I was just like, license plate maker. And I came up with this. Acme license maker. And all you do with this is you enter the characters, a year, I figured 1998 was probably safe, make a license, and it creates the license for you. And then you just simply copy that image, and then you can do whatever you want with it. So now that I've got the image, I will put that into Adobe Illustrator, and I will then basically size it to the right size for 1/25 scale. So there's always an easier way. So it's time to head over to Staples. I've got some decal film. I've got one sheet left. Hopefully that does it, and I don't have to resort to buying another package. Not that I can't afford it. I really just don't feel like going up to the hobby shop to get another one. And this is the license plate that I want to use. If we compare it to these license plates, I think this is from a Volkswagen Beetle kit, you can see that it's quite a bit larger. So we're going to make a photocopy of this sheet, and I'm going to go probably 55%, and that should get that down to the right size. And then, of course, here's our artwork for the Bluth Company. And I only need one of the Victory logo, and I only need 2 of a medium-sized one and 2 of a large one, but I've printed up 3 anyway, just in case I foul one up while I'm applying them. I've got a spare. Can't hurt. You're already basically using a decal sheet no matter what, so why not make extras? So I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be using the larger ones for the bridge portion, and then I'm going to be using one of these sizes for the side of the actual body of the ramp. So, time to head back out. I'm back from Staples, and I've got my decals made here, and I've given them just a light coating of Tamiya clear gloss just to seal them in. And that worked out pretty good when I used it for the decals for the Ford heavy wrecker, so I'm assuming it'll work again this time. And I'd like to give a shout out to the two clerks who were working at the Staples on Wellington Road here in London for putting it through one of their big machines on bypass, because the bypass on the ones the customers can get at, they've been locked out. But one of the last little bits that I actually had to create was this box on the side here, and I was debating whether I was going to do it. I was like, yes, no, yes, no. But I finally ended up whipping it together out of some styrene. It's just going to need a little bit of white paint, just so it's paint just like everything else. One of the small last minute details that had to be put on is the hydraulic legs. They're the hydraulic lines that go into the legs, because there's a hydraulic cylinder in each leg, which causes this part here to go up and down, and of course this pivot causes it to kick out. So there needs to be two lines going into the top of each leg, and you can see those right here. And I didn't worry about where these things went because they're hidden behind the cab. I just needed to have them kind of loop up and then go down somewhere. And the material I used for these hydraulic lines here was from Michaels, and it's kind of stretch magic. It's something you use for making, beads, jewelry, necklaces, and stuff like that. It's really kind of springy. I actually bought it as a potential spark plug wire cord, but I mean, it's way too big for that. But for hydraulic hoses, it looks like it's a good size. Once again, this is our mechanism for actually raising and lowering the stairs. And this is the central hydraulic cylinder. These two segments right here, they telescope as well, but they're not hydraulic. They're just basically there to stabilize things. And so I've put a little bit of bare metal foil on the exposed part of the hydraulic ram there, and that should look fine when it's tucked in underneath. And one thing I've been doing with all these parts is I've been using Tamiya panel line enhancer. I've been just letting that run into the various corners and things, just to give things a little bit of grime, just to add a little bit of age to it, because this thing is supposed to be about 36 years old. So even though it's obviously been well taken care of, it needs a little bit of age. There is the lifting mechanism glued in place. Now it's not glued in at the top yet because this is still removable. It will be glued in place soon, but I don't want to commit myself before I'm absolutely ready, but we're getting close. Big pieces are definitely coming together now. The cab has been glued onto the frame, and I actually did that twice. And the first time, everything glued on really good. It made contact with some good solid surfaces and that sort of thing, and then I set it down and went to put the bumper on. I realized the cab was cockeyed by a good 3 or 4 millimeters from side to side. It was really crooked, so I had to break things loose and reset it. So it's basically, I think, 1 millimeter higher on this side than that side. I figured I probably wouldn't be able to get that out, so when I put the bumper on, I put the bumper on with an opposite bias, and that seems to have visually fixed things up. So I had to put a little bit of bare metal foil right there and there where the front clip attached to the sprue. Looking in the engine compartment, you see I've got the upper rad hose in place, and miracle of miracles, if I flip it over, I actually have the lower rad hose in place as well, which is pretty remarkable because I'd say 9 times out of 10 I don't manage to get the lower rad hose in. But there it is. Now I just need to put a little bit of German gray on them to represent the rubber, and we're pretty much good to go there. The stabilizer leg assembly has been glued onto the main body here, and as you can see, I've also got the decals on the main body. On the underside here, I've made preparations for gluing it to the actual frame. So what I did is I just took a pencil and I drew around the areas I knew I was going to get fairly good contact. And I'm actually going to use a glue with quite a bit of body. I'm going to use one of the thick Tamiya glues, just so that I get as much contact and there's as much holding it together rather than using a thin glue that doesn't have a whole lot of body or dissolved plastic in it. So the big parts are coming together. You can see the cutouts where I actually removed part of the platform in order to get it to sit down lower. I may not actually glue the stairs in because it actually fits in there fairly tightly. But this part of the body I definitely want to have glued in place. The mirrors have been installed and they came from the 90s Super Duty kit. And I had fortunately had the foresight to pre-drill the holes for the mirrors a few months ago, mainly because when I did installed the same sort of mirrors on the racer's wedge, I didn't pre-drill the holes and it was a real pain. Even still, I like these mirrors, but as you're trying to glue them on with the super glue, it seems to be one of these times where the super glue never goes off when you want it to. And that's it. The Arrested Development Stair car, or Stair truck as some people insist, is done. And I think I've probably got about 90% accurate to the 1979 one that they first introduced on the show. And the only thing I really deviated from was just the track system for these side panels here. As I explained in an earlier episode, what you see here is what I saw on probably 3 or 4 other pictures of stair cars made by the same company. The only track that I saw that matched the one in the series, was the one in the series. So since it didn't look very nice, I decided to go with the neater one that you see there. And I didn't do a lot of weathering with this. I just basically used Tamiya panel line accent color, the dark brown one, just to run it along various seams and into corners and things like that. Because although the stair car seemed to be very well maintained, it certainly wasn't a new vehicle. It was probably about 35 years old when the series was filmed. So the decals, of course, I used Adobe Photoshop, and I used the side-on shot actually of the 1969 one, and the house and the bluth that basically came from the shot. And then I wasn't happy where it said company, so I just ended up typing that in and adding that in. So, and I also used the panel line on the wheels because they had the look of a little bit of grease and that sort of thing having oozed around it. So, but otherwise I kept the weathering fairly understated. The sides of the body actually were one of the most challenging things of the whole project, mainly because masking them started off really easy, and then every time I took the masking off, the paint leaked somewhere. Either it was a little bit of blue paint leaked or a little bit of red paint leaked, or then I'd touch it all up and a little bit of white paint leaked. Like, it's a good thing I've got lots of hair because I was certainly tearing it out. It seemed like I must have redone those sides 5 or 6 times. I almost didn't put the box on the side. The 79 stair car was the only one I could see that had that on there. But I thought since I'd already taken liberties with the sliding mechanism, I thought I should probably put the box on. And I'll have some other close-up shots in a second. So that does it for the Arrested Development stair car. And I want to thank everybody who showed an interest in the build. And until next time, just keep on modeling.